the wife I deeply loved for 10 years, Leah. She committed suicide at Julian S. grave on the day of his burial. Her best friend called to berate me. If you hadn't persistently pursued Leah with your filthy money back, then her parents wouldn't have forced her to marry you. If not for you, she and Julian would have been happily in love. Do you have any idea how much she loathed you all these years, you murderer? Reborn before the engagement, I chose to respect their love. Yet Leah wept and pleaded with me, saying, "Save me, I don't want to marry Julian." Won my wife Leah's portrait exhibition, The Love of My Life in New York, was a great success. Critics and the art world praised her profound technique and bold use of color, with each figure brimming with vitality. Only one piece was a pure gray sketch where light and shadow blended seamlessly, each stroke precise and profound, as if folding untold emotions into every line. The reporter asked with a smile, "So this painting is titled The Love of My Life, though we can only see his side profile. The outline clearly shows your husband, Ryan. Could you share your story with everyone?" Leah's expression froze, and for a long moment, she didn't respond to the reporter's question. Only when her assistant gently tugged at her sleeve did she snap out of it, her gaze distant. As she slowly began, "From high school, he always sat beside me. We fell in love back then. He was my first love." She seemed lost in memory, her eyes brimming with endless longing and sweetness. I froze, and the tablet I was holding slipped from my hands and fell to the floor. Sitting by her side, loved since high school, but Leah and I only met in college. During lectures, I always preferred sitting behind her, so she wouldn't notice the burning gaze I fixed on her. So the person she mentioned couldn't possibly be me. Turns out her true love wasn't me, it was someone else. I had been in love with Leah for 3 years and married to her for 7. I helped her rise from an obscure girl who only loved painting to become the internationally renowned young artist she is today. I invested in her art exhibitions, secured resources and sponsorships for her, funded her shows, and handled publicity. Once during an interview, she was asked how she transitioned from an amateur painter to a renowned young artist, both domestically and internationally. At that time, she never mentioned my contributions, looking into the host's eyes with nothing but sincere composure. All this was achieved through my personal efforts. Heaven will not let down any dream chaser who gives their all here. I also want to tell other young people with dreams like me, you must persevere and never give up on your dreams. You will reach the other shore of success. When that episode aired, she was hailed by netizens as the role model for dream chasers. I looked down at my left hand. Only my wedding ring remained still worn by me alone. It took several twists before I could barely manage to pull it off. The vow of love may have been removed, but the deep indentation left by the ring on my finger still reminds me over and over of the love that once existed. Leah left the art exhibition early without even giving her assistant any instructions. Because Julian committed suicide in the hospital. Leah once told me that Julian was her cousin who had doted on her since childhood. If not for him, she might have starved to death as a child. Therefore, I am deeply grateful to Julian, and I've done my utmost to take care of his work and life. Last year, he was diagnosed with stomach cancer, and I've already spent over $80,000 on his treatment. Last month, the doctor informed me that Julian's stomach cancer had reached an advanced stage. I'm currently contacting hospitals abroad, planning to take him overseas for another attempt at treatment. Only now have I come to realize that he was actually the true love in Leah's heart. How ridiculous. I have been taking care of my wife's lover like an elder all these years. Leah didn't contact me. Her last message to me was before she left for New York to hold her art exhibition, asking me to take good care of her cousin Julian. When she returned to Boston, Leah went straight to the hospital. On her way to the morgue, she cried herself hoarse and nearly fainted. Many people in Boston knew her. She had been a guest on television multiple times and had given over 20 lectures. Some netizens posted videos of her online, and soon related trending hashtags appeared. Suspected Leah's husband died. Suspected Leah's family member passed away early. My friend Chris called. As soon as I answered, he anxiously blurted out, "I heard you died." I was speechless. "Wait, if you can answer the phone, you're not dead." "So who died?" "Leah's first love," I answered weakly before hanging up the phone. Surprisingly, Julian didn't die by suicide. He had consumed a small piece of pokeweed, mistaking it for ginseng. Leah personally arranged Julian's funeral despite him having his own wife. She ignored everyone's attempts to stop her, insisting on personally notifying Julian's friends and relatives, selecting his urn and burial plot herself, and presiding over his memorial service. Leah, dressed in black, played the role of his grieving widow. Julian's wife rushed forward to claw at her, but Leah shoved her away and slapped her twice with force. She wept, "You've lived a life that should have been mine for so many years. Why must you even fight me for these few remaining days?" Those around her said she'd gone mad and called me to take her home immediately. When I arrived, Leah was clutching Julian's portrait, her expression somewhat dazed. Julian's wife sat on the ground, not far away, weeping over his ashes, her cheeks slightly swollen with traces of blood at the corners of her mouth. I strode forward, snatched the portrait from her arms, and set it aside, then hauled her to her feet. I growled at her in a low voice, Haven T, you caused enough trouble. Leah lunged at the portrait like a mad woman, clutching it tightly to her chest. Once more, she glared up at me, with venom and madness in her eyes, as if Julian had been murdered by my own hands. In just 2 days her eye sockets had sunken deep, her eyes streaked with crimson veins. She stared at me with the intensity of a sworn enemy until her body began convulsing violently. She screamed hysterically at me, get out, then shoved me with brutal force. Caught off guard, I stumbled backward onto a standing reef nearby. As my palm pressed against the already wilting white chrysanthemums, I saw the sickly obsession in Leah's eyes and the searing hatred directed at me. You found out I loved him, and then deliberately tricked him into thinking it was ginseng, didn't you? Can this really be blamed on me? Before this, I didn't even know there was a plant called pokeweed. The crowd around us gasped in shock. She has truly gone mad. I didn't want to embarrass myself alongside her in public, so I turned and walked away. For it was already a day later when I saw Leah again. Julian had been buried, and Leah stayed alone by his graveside, starting a live stream. In the stream, she poured out her love for Julian over the years, recounting how they met, fell in love, and ultimately faced the helplessness of being forced to separate. She spoke of how nauseating and painful it had been for her to play the role of my wife all these years. Finally, she took out a bottle of liquid and announced to the live stream audience of over 100,000 that she was going to find her beloved. The live chat flooded with pleas, urging her not to act impulsively, that life was more important than love, begging her to be rational. Watching the real-time comments, she shook her head firmly. Love is more important than life. I love him and am willing to give my life for him. After my death, I wish to be buried beside Julian, the love of my life. I hope that person will no longer bind me with selfish love. Grant me this final wish. She wouldn't even mention my name. Then resolutely tilting her head back, she drained the entire bottle in her hand, and weeping bitterly, she clung to Julian's tombstone. I immediately called the police and urgently tried to reach Leah, but the phone just kept ringing with no answer. The live stream continued with the number of viewers peaking at over 200,000. Many reported it, believing it was misleading to young children and teenagers. The live stream was abruptly shut down. Julian's grave was located halfway up the mountain on the outskirts of the city. By the time I rushed there, 2.5 hours had already passed since her live broadcast of drinking the poison. Forensic investigators were collecting evidence at the scene. Leah's body had already been placed in a body bag and was being carried to the vehicle. My mind went blank as I stood numbly by the graveside. She had truly given her life for the one she loved most in her heart. It turns out my love was the cage that trapped her. I stared blankly at the chaotic scene before me, watching Leah's once vibrant figure gradually fade from view. A shrill phone ring pierced the air at that moment. Without thinking, I answered to hear the hoarse screams of Leah's childhood friend of over 20 years. If you hadn't used your damn money to cling to her back, then her parents would never have forced her to marry you. If not for you, she and Julian would still be alive, you murderer. She spewed the most venomous curses at me, wishing I'd be crushed to death by a semi-truck. The moment I stepped outside, damning my soul to eternal unrest even after death. My hands trembled so violently I couldn't even hold the phone, dropping it onto the empty path leading to Julian's gravestone. It was Leah who betrayed our marriage, just as it was Leah who betrayed her first love, Julian. Why were her friends coming to berate me? As I numbly recalled every word from Leah's interview and her final live stream, I stumbled into my car in a daze. The originally clear sky suddenly flashed with lightning and thunder, tearing my already shattered heart into even more fragmented pieces. As the car reached the intersection between the mountain road and the city streets, sharp screeches of brakes, the sound of metal tearing and friction came crashing down all at once. A wave of dizziness overwhelmed me, followed by a numb, throbbing pain. Crimson blood spread over the top of my skull, smoothly flowing down to my eyes before dripping steadily onto the ground. My car was nearly crushed to pieces by that semi-truck running the red light. Blood gradually flooded my vision, and before consciousness faded from my brain, all I saw was a terrifying void of hazy black and red. 5 when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to 7 years ago, 1 month before my engagement to Leah. Her parents knelt half-crouched before me, begging me to pay off her brother's $750,000 loan shark debt with the condition that they would marry Leah to me. I looked at Leah kneeling on the ground, as well, her face now empty and bewildered. Leah's youthful face made me momentarily dazed. Everything around me felt both familiar and strange, a chaotic sensation of dream and reality entwined, washing over me. Leah's father spoke again. Ryan, we know you like Leah. Just agreed to help pay off her brother's debt. And Leah, well, you can handle her as you see fit. He gave me a meaningful look as he finished speaking. His cold and clammy hand gripped mine like a disgusting lump of mud, the real sensation, making me acutely aware this wasn't a dream. I looked at the three people before me, their expressions complex, each harboring ulterior motives. I withdrew my hand from her father's grasp and slowly uttered sorry, but someone like your daughter, isn't even worth my attention. After speaking, I stood up to leave Leah's house. Just as I was about to go, someone viciously yanked my sleeve, halting my departing steps. It's just a few $100,000 isn't. Lend the money to my parents, and I'll pay you back later. At this moment, Leah stood up, her eyes regaining clarity as she looked at me as if we were engaged in a business negotiation. I tugged at the corner of my clothes and brushed it off as though it had been tainted by something dirty. Then I coldly replied, sorry, I'm having some cash flow issues with my business and can't come up with $750,000 right now. Using any excuse I could find, I didn't want to get entangled with her family any further. I just wanted to break free quickly and escape these suffocating vines. Leah was taken aback, clearly not expecting me to outright refuse. Ridiculous, did she really think her pride carried more weight than her own parents? Didn't you make nearly $1.5 million from that Southgate project? How can you not even come up with $750,000, Leah demanded, as if it were the most natural question. I frowned. That Southgate project was something I'd invested in during my previous life when we got engaged, but the actual profits came after our marriage. Right now, the project was still in the bidding phase. How could she already know I'd earned nearly $1.5 million? I gazed at her slightly pale face and the composure that belied her age. The familiar coldness and mockery resurfaced in her pitch-black eyes. My heart skipped a beat. She had returned to thinking about it. It wasn't strange since we had died on the same day. Coming back together made sense. But this time heaven had granted me a second chance at life. I swore I would never have anything to do with her again. 6 Ryan, you're just flaunting your filthy money, aren't you? Let me tell you, I couldn't care less. $75,000 is something I can easily make from a single art exhibition. Leah's tone was resolute, as if the money was already in her account waiting to be withdrawn with just a password. She helped her parents up. Dad, Mom, it's better to rely on yourself and others. Is $75,000 really worth marrying him for? Her father looked at her as if she were an idiot, while her mother seemed somewhat convinced. Leah, are you serious? Can you really come up with $750,000? Her mother's eyes reignited with hope. Of course it's true. A single painting of mine sells for several million. Tell your brother to hold on for 2 more months. At worst, we can mortgage our house to help him pay in installments. I'll get this money for you. After speaking, she shot me a glare. Why aren't you leaving yet, waiting for us to invite you to dinner? Her father still wanted to stop me, but the mother and daughter grabbed his outstretched hand and gave him a meaningful look. Looking at the woman before me, with still a hint of baby fat on her face, this was 22-year-old Leah, who had just graduated from college. I smiled bitterly to myself, my heart aching. The first thing she did upon returning was the same as me severing all emotional ties between us. The moment I stepped out of her house, I heard her call, Julian, Julian, where are you? I miss you so much. I sighed deeply in silence. A decade of emotions. Ultimately, it had all been misplaced. 7. There was a missed call from my dad on my phone. After hesitating for a long time, I chose to call him back. My dad's tone wasn't friendly as he demanded to know how much longer I intended to keep making trouble. Hearing his still vigorous voice, my eyes instantly reddened. In my previous life, because of my marriage to Leah, my relationship with my parents wasn't very good. I had rejected the arranged marriage they set up for me, insisting on marrying Leah, who came from a family with no background and even had outstanding debts. Leah considered herself superior, always believing she had married beneath her station, that my worldly, pragmatic soul was unworthy of her dreams and poetry. She knew my parents disliked her, so she avoided every opportunity to meet them, let alone visit them of her own accord. Later, when my parents humbled themselves and repeatedly brought groceries over hoping to share a reunion meal with us, she would always excuse herself, claiming urgent matters at her studio. Until the very end, when she took her own life before Julian's grave, she never once called my parents mom or dad. I don't know what kind of shocking grief my death brought to my parents. I was their only son, yet I never showed them a single day of filial piety, and in the end, I made them bury their child. My thoughts were interrupted by my father's angry shout. I told you, if you refuse to meet the Sioux family's daughter again, I'll sever our father-son relationship. I hurriedly responded, Dad, I agree, just give me the address again. But my father was stunned on the other end. After a long pause, he asked, what did you say? Dad, what's the name of the Sioux family's daughter? What is she like? What kind of gift should I bring when I visit? It's Sophia. I don't know what she likes. Call your mom and ask her. My father stammered through his answer before hurriedly hanging up. Mom called shortly after, her voice cautious, yet probing. Son, you've finally come around. Your father thought you were possessed just now. He insisted I call to double check. I wanted to laugh, but my nose stung and tears nearly spilled out. Remembering how I wronged my parents in my past life, I could punch myself hard a few times. Mom, I thought it through. I'll follow your and Dad's arrangements. On the other end, my mother chirped quietly. See, I told you our son is sensible and thinks of the bigger picture. You didn't believe in him. Then my mother raised her voice and said to me, Sophia loves flowers and plants. If it's convenient for you, go to the flower market and pick some for her. 8. Following the address my mother gave me, I arrived at a cafe. Sophia was already waiting there. Seeing me enter, she waved at me with a smile, looking very familiar. As I took my seat, her clear voice rang out. It was your father who forced you. Was my family did the same. She tilted her head slightly to one side as she spoke, then spread her hands in a helpless gesture, looking utterly adorable. I quickly waved my hands in denial. No, I genuinely wanted to see for myself what kind of remarkable woman our city as newly acclaimed outstanding young female is. Sophia's cheeks flushed slightly at my words, and she gave an embarrassed little laugh. That was just an online poll. It doesn't count for anything. It's not like it was an official evaluation by some authoritative body, so please don't tease me about it. Although it was just an online poll, the trend was clear. Sophia was truly exceptional. According to my father, she founded a tech startup during college, gathering a group of ambitious young people to build a business together. Within just a few years, they had secured a foothold in Boston. After securing investment for her company, she turned her passion to philanthropy, donating 5% of her personal share profits to impoverished mountainous regions. She led by example, even spending 2 years teaching in those impoverished areas herself. Now at 25, her face radiates determination and resolve, a far cry from the image my mother painted of a girl who simply loved flowers and plants. She seemed to read my thoughts and said with a smile, "What do I not match what you imagined?" I nodded, then shook my head. No, compared to my imagination, I admire the you standing before me even more. Sophia was momentarily taken aback, the tips of her ears quietly turning a shade of pink. Our first meeting was quite pleasant. We talked about careers, dreams, and views on family. I discovered to my astonishment that our values aligned perfectly. Before, Leah had always believed her artistic career was noble, while she saw me as nothing more than a businessman tainted by the stench of money. She looked down on me half jokingly, half mockingly. She'd say, making money can't be called a dream. Being an artist is the real dream. Even her view of family was dismissive. She thought of it as merely a concept, believing a loveless marriage was nothing but a tomb. As for Sophia, she believes that as long as one can contribute to society and fulfill their own expectations, it can be a career or a dream. Earning money is not shameful. What is shameful is earning dirty money and not giving back to society. She says that family is the refuge of the soul. Even if everything else betrays you, home is the harbor that can still offer warmth and comfort. 9. In this life, I no longer carry the heavy burden of Leah, and it feels incredibly liberating. Whether it's interacting with my parents or handling work matters, everything comes more naturally, and my mood is exceptionally joyful. In the past, I always had to compromise myself to accommodate her emotions. Yet she only ever cared about her own feelings, never sparing a thought for anything else. That evening, while having drinks with my friend Chris, he showed me an advertisement from an online art magazine. I quickly skimmed through it. It was an ad Leah had bought to promote her upcoming exhibition. In a week, it mentioned she would be showcasing a painting she had worked on for 3 years titled The Throes of Youth. I closed my eyes and recalled that painting a scene of a hillside covered in wild chrysanthemums with 2 figures gazing at each other from afar. It was the first painting she sold at her exhibition, purchased for $1.2 million by an anonymous veteran art collector. That very painting established her reputation. Though Leah's other works from that period were rather ordinary, many collectors and peers speculated that The Throes of Youth must possess some extraordinary quality. Why else would someone pay $1.2 million for it? In truth, that unknown collector was me. To give her confidence and the financial freedom to create, I bought her painting anonymously. As for what makes her painting stand out, it's probably that the brushstrokes are too rough, the lines too chaotic, the layers too exaggerated, and the composition too disorganized. In truth, all her paintings sold for over $1 million were secretly purchased by me. The lower-priced ones were bought by others simply because of her so-called reputation, with hopes of future appreciation and value. But people only remember that her works were collected at high prices, paying no attention to the smaller sums. From then on, her fame grew even greater, and with my help, she even made her way into the international market. In this lifetime, without my help, let us see how she'll fare. I coldly handed the phone back to Chris. From now on, I don't want to hear any news about her. We're done. Surprise instantly flashed across his face, and after a long pause, he excitedly raised his glass. I'm genuinely happy you've made this decision to celebrate your return to singlehood. Cheers. He downed his drink. I froze for a moment before suddenly understanding. So it turns out no one around us approved of us. By the time I finished drinking with Chris, it was almost 10 p.m. The city night was aglow with the warm yellow halos of neon lights, occasionally dotted with falling leaves fluttering like dancing butterflies. Not wanting to waste such a night, I didn't call a designated driver, and instead walked home slowly by myself. It was already past 11 when we approached the neighborhood. Under the street lamp at the entrance stood a familiar figure. It was Leah. When she saw me, she quickened her steps and stood before me, just a few days apart, had left her looking even more haggard, her complexion paler than before. I didn't want to speak with her. Instinctively, I tried to walk straight past her. She extended her right hand, directly blocking my path, the dim yellow light casting shadows behind her, rendering her expression unreadable in the gloom. Ryan, Leah's voice came out hoarse. The suppressed emotion in her tone instantly put me on alert. I stared intently into her eyes, unwilling to miss any flicker of expression. My art exhibition opens next week, Leah said. She seemed to be waiting for me to say more, but seeing that I had no further response, she said, I want to borrow $75,000 from you. For preliminary promotional expenses, my parents mortgaged their house to pay off part of my brother's loan, and I used the rest for my art exhibition. What a fool, I want to lend you this money. You might as well ask Julian, I kindly reminded her. Wasn't Julian her love of her life? A mere $75,000 shouldn't be a problem for him. Leah's expression stiffened, her eyes flickering uneasily. Cousin is working as a security guard, now earning only $3,500 a month. I was actually hoping to ask if you could transfer him to your company as the head of the marketing department. I seem to have heard the biggest joke of all time and burst out laughing with a snort. In my previous life, she had recommended Julian to me, saying he was a key member of the marketing department at her former company back then. Just to save Leah face, I directly appointed him as the head of my company's marketing department. Despite his lack of talent, with most deals actually being secured by his subordinates, I still kept him on with an annual salary of $85,000. Leah looked somewhat embarrassed, perhaps not expecting such a drastic change from me, who had always been utterly compliant with her before. She has always been self-centered. If she had paid just a little more attention, she would have noticed that I had come back with her. But she is too arrogant. When has she ever cared about others? What do you mean by laughing like that? Leah demanded angrily. Exactly what you think I mean, she replied, her face flushing crimson with rage. You think you can control me with your filthy money dream on? You don't have to lend me money, just stop following me around like a puppy every day. She thought this trump card would make me compromise unconditionally immediately. I just thought she was an idiot, shook my head with a smile, and walked away. Leah stood frozen in place. Even after I entered the neighborhood and reached the building, she remained standing in the exact same position. 11, as expected, not a single painting from Leah's exhibition was sold. At this point, she had no reputation, no prestige, just a few decent paintings trying to stand out among established artists, unless she was dreaming that wasn't happening. And when my friends heard we'd broken up, they all distanced themselves from her too. Clearly her plan to cash in from this exhibition failed. I wonder how she'll face the loan sharks and her family. Now, she even mortgaged her house. But she probably hadn't thought that far ahead, because she was too busy chasing after her true love. Yes, she got engaged to Julian, who was still working as a security guard, all for the sake of pursuing love. For this, Julian abandoned his girlfriend of 3 years, the very woman who had been his wife in their previous life. How wonderful she wouldn't have to become a widow at such a young age. I suppose that counts as a good deed on Leah and Julian's part. She openly flaunted her relationship on Instagram. Julian proposed to her with a ring he crafted from wildflowers. Julian fought loan sharks to protect her without hesitation. Julian carried her all the way from the foot of the mountain to the summit just to watch the sunrise with her. Julian, every pure romantic would sigh deeply after seeing her posts. She seemed to be flaunting her love all the time, which reminded me of a popular saying online, the more you lack something, the more you want to show it off. Was it this very emotion that made her insecure? I didn't really want to know the truth. I just sincerely wished the two of them could remain entangled, forever locked together for eternity. However, her love story with Julian only lasted 2 or 3 months on Instagram before coming to an abrupt end. I was thoroughly enjoying the chase when it suddenly stopped updating, leaving me quite disappointed. 12, Sophia and I had reached the point of discussing marriage. Although we'd been together for less than half a year, I was certain she was the woman I wanted to choose. Sophia was 2 years older than me, outwardly gentle and soft-spoken. She always wore a smiling expression that made her seem approachable, but when she turned on her full charisma, I couldn't help but feel like kneeling and calling her big sister. Recalling the information about Sophia I had seen online in my previous life, she had always remained single after her parents passed away. She struggled alone to keep the Sue family business afloat. By then, the world had fully entered the internet era, and e-commerce and live streaming posed massive challenges to the traditional Sue family enterprise. If not for Sophia's unwavering persistence, the Sue Group would likely have faced bankruptcy liquidation. In this life, Sophia and I have come together. I will never let such things happen again. I'll do everything in my power to protect her and safeguard her family's business. And, of course, my own family's company As well, with things progressing smoothly between Sophia and me, my father has begun entrusting me with more corporate responsibilities, and we've established deeper collaborations with the Sue Group. Compared to my father's company's business, my previous company was child's play. I poached my friend Chris to take over as the general manager of my former small company. Meanwhile, I devoted more energy to the group's operations. The night before my engagement to Sophia, I invited Chris out for drinks. Unlike my engagement to Leah in my previous life, when I felt nothing but joy this time, I was filled with both happiness and nervousness. I'm afraid I want to be good enough afraid. I want to deserve her. The more time I spend with her, the more she seems like a dazzling star, while Leah is nothing but a flawed pearl in comparison. I didn't dare drink too much, fearing it might interfere with the engagement banquet the next day. I just wanted to chat casually with my brothers to ease the excitement in my heart. 13. Returning home, all the lights in the house were on, which puzzled me. As I was changing shoes at the entrance, Leah walked out wrapped in a bath towel. Her damp hair cascaded over her shoulders, still glistening with droplets of water as she slowly untied the towel, letting it slide down. Completely naked, her voice thick with desire, murmured, "Ryan, you still love me, don't you?" She stepped toward me, one deliberate pace at a time. Unable to decipher what trick she was playing, I immediately kicked the front door wide open and raised my phone in my hand. A scheming woman like her wouldn't appear here. Without reason, she was absolutely brewing some sinister plot. She saw me open the front door and start recording a video, immediately bending down to grab the bath towel from the floor and hastily wrapping it around herself. "Ryan, what are you doing?" she snapped in frustration. "You got 5 minutes to put on your clothes and get the hell out, or I'll call the police for trespassing," I warned her sharply. I'd been careless. I never changed the door code, and she took advantage of that. After lingering for a long time, she finally got dressed and stood before me. She looked somewhat desperate, tears welling up in her eyes. "Ryan, you're actually engaged to another woman? Just to get back at me, do you think only you can marry someone else? I can marry Julian too." Looking at her before me, I felt a surge of irritation. I made a be my guest gesture, intending to push her out the door. Her gaze gradually shifted from despair to venom. "Ryan, don't you dare regret this." She raised her hand to slap me, but I caught her wrist. "You worth my regret. Don't make me laugh. Get out," I growled at her. Leah looked at me as if I were a stranger, muttering to herself, "Know this isn't right. Why is it like this?" I had no patience for her rambling. I shoved her out the door and quickly locked it behind her. Probably because I treated her too well during those 11 years in my past life. But did she ever consider, after publicly declaring her love for Julian in a live broadcast, that I would still be devoted to her? She was far too confident. 13. My engagement party with Sophia was grand. This wasn't just a simple engagement celebration. It was also a public announcement of the powerful alliance between the Sue Group and the Shun Corporation. Well wishes poured in from all sectors of society. The wedding was scheduled for 3 months later, coinciding with New Year's Day, a fitting symbol of a brand new beginning. Both my family's business and the Sue family's enterprise are progressing towards better development. What I never expected was that ever since Leah suddenly appeared at my place that day, she had become like an inescapable shadow. She blocked me at every possible place I might appear, causing scenes in my company several times, only to be dragged out by security each time. Refusing to give up, she then turned to harassing Sophia. I suspect she must be facing some financial difficulties. Otherwise, how could someone as proud as her stoop to the behavior of the shrew she despised most in her past life? It's quite laughable when you think about it. Born into an ordinary family, yet she looked down on ordinary people at every turn, touting herself as an artist fundamentally different from us Philistines. She used the money I gave her to buy expensive jewelry and handbags, to fulfill her dream of traveling the world for inspiration, to focus solely on painting without a care for practical life. That's why she had the time and leisure to reminisce about her so-called love. Now, while I found Sophia and explained my history with Leah in detail, assuring her I would handle all the problems, she looked down at me with a gentle smile, patting my face. "I believe in you. Come, find me after you've sorted things out." She had such an authoritative, mature charm. Whoever said she was just the girl next door type. 14. I arranged to meet Leah, wanting to cut through the complications quickly. She seemed to be doing very poorly, even downright destitute. But it's been a long time since I've heard any news about her. My attention is solely focused on Sophia. Other women don't interest me. Leah now had disheveled hair, a sallow complexion, and faint bluish-purple bruises on her arms that appear to be old injuries. The red marks near her collarbone were particularly unsettling, their size suggesting they might have been caused by a kick. She really was in a pitiful state in her previous life. She would have meticulously styled every strand of hair and maintained flawless makeup all day, never looking as wretched as she did now. Yet I felt completely indifferent inside, even somewhat smug. Her eyes brimmed with tears, her fragile frame trembling in the breeze, exuding a heartbreaking beauty. Physically speaking, she was quite beautiful. Otherwise, in my past life, I wouldn't have been so foolishly blinded. Ryan, I regret it. The abrupt statement left me clueless about what she meant. Are you punishing me because I chose to leave you after that live stream? She murmured painfully, her body shuddering slightly. She finally realized I had returned too. I chuckled softly in response. Perhaps during this period of torment, she finally understood why my attitude toward her had changed so abruptly and why I avoided her at every turn, refusing to have anything to do with her. I didn't respond to her because this confession didn't move me in the slightest. These were merely the consequences of her own choices. Please, I don't want to marry Julian. Leah clutched my hand, nearly falling to her knees. I coldly brushed her hand away and looked down at her with disdain. So what? She wept bitterly back. Then he only gave me $50,000 and demanded I marry him. He was secretly doing drugs, and after getting high, he beat and abused me. Turns out that $50,000 was borrowed from a friend. When he couldn't repay it, he forced me to. He forced me to pay the debt with my body. She wailed hysterically. Suddenly it all made sense. She hit rock bottom and wanted to turn back. Too late. That man was her true love, the one she was willing to sacrifice her life to follow. Now, after just half a year together, was this dream already shattered? The persona of Julian in the previous life was something I helped craft for him. He had a respectable job, a happy family. To outsiders, he appeared gentle and refined, treating his wife with utmost care and devotion. That's why Leah loved him, loved a married man. The forbidden desire, both craved and concealed, intoxicated her, driving her to madness. Now that both Julian's wife and I are out of the picture, they can openly love each other, yet this love lasts less than half a year. She couldn't admit that the man she loved was a useless, violent addict. So she thought of me again, the man her parents had once forced her to marry beneath her just because I had a bit of money in our past life. I looked down at the broken beauty before me and gave her a reminder. It was your own choice when you chose to die, clinging to his tombstone. You had already lost me. If you dare harass Sophia again, don't blame me for being ruthless toward you and your family. You know I can do it. She collapsed to the ground in disbelief, clutching her head and weeping bitterly. But no matter how painfully she cried, it could no longer move my heart. In this life, I am content. I even thank her for what she did before. Otherwise, I would never have met Sophia. As I walked away, Leah cried out behind me. Ryan, I'm the one who wronged you. Only now do I realize that everything I had was shaped by you. It was you who gave me that happiness in the past life. Julian used me. He was always scamming money from me. He deceived me. First, deep down, I truly love you, Ryan. It was all his psychological manipulation. My steps never faltered as I walked further and further away. The voice behind me gradually faded. 14. If Leah had stayed true to her heart's love, I might have respected her a little. Now all that remains is contempt. On New Year's Day, Sophia and I got married. The moment the ring slid onto her left ring finger, I finally let go of my lingering doubts. From that day forward, this woman was truly mine. Several months later, Sophia and I were curled up on the sofa watching the news when a report came on about narcotics officers arresting drug users. Among the row of male and female addicts, Julian's figure stood out unmistakably. The news was reportedly provided by an anonymous informant. Although I was somewhat shocked to see Julian, considering how often he dealt with such things, it was only a matter of time before he got caught. What I didn't expect was that there would be more to the story. It turns out Julian wasn't just using drugs, he was also dealing them. He never had much money to begin with, so he resorted to selling to support his own habit. After the police arrested them that day, they searched their residence and found over 300 grams of drugs hidden in a flour bag at his place. Though he didn't specify what kind exactly, that amount would make it tough for him to get out again. 15. Just after wrapping up a business deal, my driver dropped me off at the entrance of the villa community. I told the driver to head back first, want to walk a stretch myself to clear my head. The early autumn evening breeze was delightfully refreshing, having shed the summer's oppressive heat and humidity, lifting my mood considerably. I sat on the flower bed by the roadside, wanted to take a few photos of the tranquil night scenery to share with Sophia later. Then a slender figure suddenly appeared in my viewfinder. She stared at me with a stubborn expression, her gaze fixed and vacant. Seems like you're doing quite well, Leah said with a bitter smile, tugging at her lips. It's her again, really clinging to me like a shadow. I put away my phone. Looks like I'll have to retake the photo. Accidentally captured something filthy. Leah was visibly flustered by my look of disgust, fidgeting nervously. Ryan, I sent him to prison. He get a life sentence. Can you forgive me now? I froze. She was the informant. All along, Leah had already bent down and knelt before me. Disgusted, I shifted my position and snapped at her. He got what he deserved. Think of all the innocent people and families he ruined. He brought it on himself. Leah's eyes reddened as she pleaded weakly, but I reported him for you. I wanted to atone in our past life. I shouldn't have abandoned you. I regret it so much. We had such a good life. Why did I throw it all away for that scum? Do you know how much I've hated myself these days? I could killed myself. You were so good to me, yet She choked up momentarily, unable to continue. After a pause, she spoke again. I always thought I still loved him. You appeared out of nowhere, during our happiest time together, my parents forced me to marry you. I thought you were the one who ruined us, but in the end I realized I love you. It's you I love, Ryan. I was speechless even now. She couldn't stop shifting the blame onto me. I corrected her. I didn't appear out of nowhere. During your happiest time, you've probably forgotten you were the one who knelt before me back, then begging me to help your family through their crisis. I was only pursuing you at the time. I never forced you to do anything. You were the one who chose to abandon your first love. You were the one who chose money over him. Who did you think would buy those worthless paintings of yours? If I hadn't secretly spent a fortune purchasing them, you wouldn't even have been able to feed yourself. You want to have your cake and eat it too. I truly despise you. Leah's mouth fell open in shock after hearing this. Those paintings, it was, impossible. She shook her head frantically, unwilling to believe that the career she had been so proud of in her past life was actually a beautiful illusion I had constructed for her. I had no intention of letting her off so easily. Why shouldn't she know all the things I'd done for her? If this regret could nod her twice as hard, I'd be more than happy. I enunciated each word slowly to her. Yes, it was me, the hype for your exhibitions, the sponsorships, the behind-the-scenes high-price buyers, all of it was me. Your so-called paintings were worthless, barely fetching a few $100 on the market at best. And let us not forget your international awards. Did you really think you could have won them without my sponsorship? Wake up. Leah had already covered her ears. She couldn't believe it. Didn't want to believe it. She slumped to the ground, repeating only one phrase over and over. I don't believe it. I want to believe it. I don't care whether you believe it or not. It's none of my business. I stuffed my phone into my pocket and prepared to leave. Tonight's nightscape would have to go unphotographed. I'd have to capture it for Sophia another time. Ryan, don't leave me. My parents and brother have all abandoned me. Julian is gone. You're all I have left. She clung to my pant leg from where she lay on the floor. With a swift kick, I forced her to let go. Thank heaven for giving me a second chance. Those 10 years of my past life, I might as well have fed them to a dog. Don't you dare talk to me about love. You are not worthy. I strode away without a glance back at her wailing on the ground. 16. My world finally fell silent. After that night, Leah never appeared in my life again. A year later, Sophia got pregnant. During a prenatal checkup at the hospital, the doctor told us we were having twins. Suddenly, I felt the weight on my shoulders grow heavier now. I had to care not just for Sophia alone, but also for 2 children. There was once an interview where she was asked how she went from being an amateur painter to becoming a renowned young artist, both domestically and internationally. Everything seemed to be moving in a positive direction, except for Leah. The next time I heard news of her was when Chris and I were discussing how long women should wait after childbirth before getting pregnant again. He clearly avoided answering my question, abruptly changing the subject to Leah. He said Leah had been acting somewhat erratic these past 2 years, obsessively determined to hold art exhibitions. For some unknown reason, she had taken out loans no one knew, how much, mortgaging everything in the house. Yet those exhibitions were like stones thrown into water, sinking straight to the bottom without making a single ripple. Now, with both new and old creditors closing in, her parents and younger brother had long since disappeared to who knows where, leaving only her behind in Boston. So all those debt collectors came after her, driven to desperation. She climbed a cliff and jumped. Her body wasn't discovered until days later by hikers on an adventure. Chris said as he opened his phone and pushed a news article in front of me. I looked at the location of the incident. It was the very mountain peak where Leah had posted photos on Instagram of her watching the sunrise with Julian. The cliff, there was hundreds of meters deep. If someone jumped, their bones would probably shatter upon impact. Chris sighed silently, saying he never expected someone who had seemed so serene could do such outrageous things. 2 days later, the police contacted me. They said they had found letters Leah left for me during a search of her residence. Before her death, my contact information was written on them with a request to pass them on to me. It was a thick diary, every page filled to the brim. But I had no desire to read it, whether it contained her confessions or her affections. None of it concerned me anymore. I fetched a metal basin, placed the diary inside, and set it ablaze, reducing everything to ashes. Sophia came to my side, just then tucking her long hair behind her ear. With infinite tenderness, she asked, "Darling, what are you burning?" "Just some trash not worth mentioning to you." The end.